Okay, I was asked what I could do about the loose poly error message that comes up in Wrap3. So here goes. I kind of simplified your view here because this is going to look intimidating. It's not as bad as it looks, but I'm about to show you what you need to make this work for morphing. First off, I've got a Genesis 8 male here. I've actually changed his UVs a little bit to make this easier, and I'll walk you through that in just a second. But let's look at what we got to do in here first. This is the recipe you got to build. And like I said, it looks more complicated than it really is. Just bear with me a second. Okay. Okay. Wrap will not wrap anything that has loose geometry. So basically, it's only going to wrap the skin of Genesis or Michael 4 or whatever your base figure is. It's only going to wrap the skin. It doesn't wrap the eyes or the teeth or the eyelashes or any of that stuff that's separate, and it won't wrap if those are still part of the geometry. So you have to separate them. If you create a subset by hitting Tab, Geometry, Subset, and then you select the skin with a this is just selector, so it would be Tab, Selection, Select Polygons. I've just renamed it so I knew what it was. And then you look at the visual editor, and what I've done is I've selected the skin. And the way I've done this easily is I've actually added a material, smalls. That's all the extra geometry. With Genesis 8, it's mostly eyes and teeth. Eyelashes are also a problem, but Genesis 8 has those as separate figures. The other figures have those as separate, and Generation 4 figures also have the fingernails as a separate piece too. So you kind of have to be aware of that. You can just add smalls and then invert, because it's what you select is what your subset is. Okay, let's go back to the viewport, and if you will, you can unshow that and show the subset, and now it's just the skin geometry. Okay? You then, from here on out, this is the object that you're wrapping. This we don't need until we get done with wrapping. So this is your wrapper object, and this is what you're wrapping. For me, it's a version of the rock that I found somewhere. Then you it's pretty straightforward from there if you've already done it or looked at the original tutorials. You plug in a select points, and this one is the new Genesis 8, and you plug that into the left side, and you plug what you're wrapping around into the right side, and you select your points. You match them up. Zero to 0, 1 to 1, 10 to 10. You get the idea. And every time you put in a new figure, you'll have to redo that part. But other than that, and you'll have to redo your subset selection if you change Genesis 8 male to female, or to V4. These selection things will not transfer between the different figures, but everything else will. So you can kind of save this and reuse it on different figures. You'll just have to go back in and fix your selections for the different geometries. Anyway, so you right here you've selected your points, and you plug that yellow to yellow in your wrapping node, which is that's tab alignment wrapping. And again, a lot of this stuff has been renamed just so I can keep track. You do need to select polygons again, specifically for the wrapping. This can't be the same select polygons as up here. This is a different select polygons, because this works in the opposite direction. Whatever you select here won't get wrapped. It will move. It tries to keep it proportionally correct. So it will move it, but it doesn't squish it. And usually, if I'm only wrapping a head, I will select the head and unselect everything else. But I almost always select the mouth, because that needs to be done manually in another program, not in here. I usually do the mouth in ZBrush. But you could do it in whatever program you use. You could even do it in Blender, but I'm only just kind of learning Blender, and I don't know how to tell you how to work it. Anyway, I'm trying to stay in order, but these lines all over the place make it a little bit difficult. Anyway, so you wrap it, and I'm gonna pause the video and wrap this and let it so that I can show you what the wrap looks like. It won't let me do it otherwise. Okay, and we're back. I took about, I don't know, 5 or 6 minutes, and what we end up with is that. That is... Right, now we can turn this off. This is our new Genesis 8 skin. And it looks like we've got a little bit of wrong side out there. Yeah, the eye is sticking out a little bit. I don't know why. This didn't happen before. But doesn't really matter for this. I'll fix that later. It's just for, you know, showing you what you need to do to fix that error. So anyway, that's your wrapping node. Now, from here, you can see that it goes a few different places. If you're not going to transfer the textures over, you don't even need to worry about these down here. But if you are, we'll get to those in a second. This one right here, right from wrapping, you need to go to your apply subset node. And here's what it does. Can't really see it right now, but because, like I said, the geometry kind of went wrong. But it puts everything back the way it was. Your teeth are back, your eyes are back. They're not in the right place, but they're back. And you'll be able to fix that. Oh, by the way, I can't remember if I said this or not. I use Carrera scale when I export. It seems to work a lot better in this app when I use Daz scale or Poser scale. It's really small. Both of them are really small, and it's hard to zoom into places in that scale. And when Carrera scale works really well and Daz can read it normally, it's the best. I happen to use Carrera, so it works for me even better, but I would be using it for this anyway. Okay, sorry, off on a tangent again. So the apply subset goes back and reapplies your mouth and your eyes and all that kind of stuff. And you just, the same select from earlier, you just punch it back into here. And that's all you do. And this all, once you have this set up, it's ready to go. Once this computes, this automatically computes. And so over here is your save geometry, and you know it's going to save that file, but you have to compute current frame on that before it actually saves anything out. Until you do that, this isn't saved. You do not have a file. But that's everything for wrapping, and like I said, this puts it back together so you end up getting out a full model, even though you have to put some stuff back. But anyway, right here, if you're wanting to save textures, this is how you do that. First off, I'm selecting polygons again, and I'm selecting the mouth because I don't want the mouth transferred. That would need to be a separate file because Wrap can only handle one texture per figure, and it doesn't deal well with UVs that are out of range. So the Genesis 8 UVs are a problem for Wrap altogether. It wants the Victoria 4 style where overlapped, and even then it won't separate them. You have to delete polygons in order to get it to do that. You'd have to delete everything but the face to do the face torso, the face texture or whatever. So like I said, I changed the UVs on this, and here's what my UVs look like. You switch to the viewport 2D, and the rock model isn't complete, so some of the files aren't getting transferred. I'll have to go back in and fix it. But you can see that I have tiled the different body parts by 4. So after this is output, I can go into Photoshop and cut it into fourths. You know, perfect square fourths, and save the individual pieces, and it's done. I even have a Photoshop action that'll do that. So that part makes it easier for texture transfer. And then oh, I'm missing a node here. So you right click on these lines and you can disconnect. And truthfully, most of the time you want your texture transfer here separated unless you're doing texture. I generally keep it in the saved files, but you don't want it always there, because everything you change when something's not working or you need to go back and do something, once you rewrap, it has to redo the texture transfer, and that takes a minute, and every time it has to do it again. and every time you have to wait for that to be done. So generally you just want that done, or not connected. But right now we're going to leave it connected because I need to add another thing to show you one last thing. This is going to give you bad seams, but it's easy to fix. I left it like this because, like I said, the rock has some missing pieces, and I'm going to have to go into Photoshop and fix them, so I didn't want this to happen. If you go to Image, Extrapolate Image, and it's going to take a second to process that, and see, that's what Extrapolate Image gives you. It gives you no seams. It does absolutely nothing to the actual texture, so it just mathematically fills in the areas around the texture so that it doesn't screw anything up, and it works brilliantly. It's the best seam fixer I have ever used. Okay, one last thing on the texture transfer. To make it work, your wrap model, the model you're wrapping around, has to have, if you hold control on that blue dot, that'll be the only thing that it shows. Has to have a texture on it. Anyway, your wrap model has to, the model you're wrapping around has to have a texture on it. Okay? And it has to be a single texture, like I said. It doesn't matter which side of the thing, it has to have a single texture. But it can support batches. This one has the original texture and the original normals. And down here is your timeline. It always starts at 0, so I've got 2 textures, which means I've got 0 and 1 frames. That has caused me so much problems because it messes with the math. Every time, however many images you have to subtract 1 from it, and that's how many frames you need. It's not that big a deal, but it's annoying. Anyway, this is why I'm telling you this, or why I'm going into this. When you load these images, these aren't the same images, but it doesn't matter. I can still tell you this. It doesn't matter what images they are. It doesn't matter their names. It doesn't matter anything. The order that they're in determines what order they are processed in. So you actually have to, even if you number them 01, 02, 03, you have to hold control and select them in order one at a time. Otherwise, it'll randomly go the order it wants to, and you won't be able to rename your output files later, because there is the only naming convention in this program is numbers. So you can, like, this one would be rock 000 and then 0001. They would both be named rock, and then they would be sequentially numbered after that. So if you want to match up when you have a whole bunch of files, you need to make sure that you have those original files in the right order, so that based on the numbers you can rename them later. Okay, that was a lot longer tutorial than I really intended to do. I'm actually gearing up for an entire feature-filled tutorial where I show how to build this thing from scratch and walk through the whole thing. So that'll be coming soon. Anyway, that's it. I hope that helps. If not, let me know. Alright.